All right, welcome back, Hononegah Algebra 1. Section 6.2, we're going to talk about radicals and rational exponents. Radicals are uh, where you're talking about the root of something, okay? And rational exponents are just fractional exponents. So a fractional exponent. There are three sets of inverse operations. You've done two of them. This will be the third. The first one, back when you were first starting solving, addition and subtraction are inverses of each other. Next, again, things that you've done back when you were first starting, multiplication and division are inverses of each other. So those are the ones, again, throughout your entire mathematical career, when you're doing solving equations, you need inverses. Well, the new one, or the one that you have not necessarily done, is roots and exponents or powers. Section 6.1, we have spent a long time doing exponent rules. And so now we're going to do the inverse of those. So powers are exponents and roots. So a square root and something squared, or a cube root and something cubed. Those are inverses of each other. So let's actually look at this here. So this is a power, 2 to the third power. And this is a root, that is the cube root of 8. So now, anytime you have a root and something with the same power, those are inverses of each other. Basically, a root and a power cancel each other out. Now, it has to be the same. So like a cube root with something cubed, or a fourth root with something to the fourth power. So in order to cancel them out, notice this is what the exact situation we just had below. The cube root of something cubed would cancel out. So now I got a little problem solving then here. This is a box, and if you want the volume of a box, okay, the volume of a box is s cubed, side times side times side. So if they told me that this particular box had a volume of 27, now inverse, instead of dividing by 3, you're actually going to take the cube root of both sides. That gets the s by itself. And now I need to rewrite 27 as something to the third power. 27 is 3 times 3 times 3. So this side would have to be 3 feet in order to have a box that has a volume of 27. Next one, s cubed equals 125. Again, you're going to take the cube root of both sides. 5 to the third power is 125, and so each side would have to be 5 centimeters. Last one, and this one probably is a little bit above what you guys are used to dealing with, but this is actually 15 cubed, and we wouldn't ever necessarily do that to you or expect you guys to know that. And so this is 15, and this is in inches. So let's talk more about this. There's two ways of writing a radical. You can either write it as a radical, or you can write it as an exponent. Now, here's how you do this. Whatever the root is and whatever the exponent is. So if I wanted to rewrite this, this is a square root. If it doesn't have anything here, it's assumed a 2. So this is 13 to the 1/2 power, because it's 13 to the first, that goes on top, and the root goes on the bottom. So this is 22 to the 1/4 power, or this is 5 to the 4/3 power. Again, notice the power goes on top, and the root goes on the bottom. So let's do it in reverse then. This is 27 to the 1/2 power. Now, again, square roots are assumed. So notice I did not put anything out in front of the square root. And the 27 to the first power, so I didn't have to put a 1. So the next one is the 5th root of 10. And again, you don't have to put the 10 to the first power. And then the next one is -3 to the 7 7th root, 3rd power. So as I go through this, I'll kind of do this in two different ways. The cube root of -8 is the same as -8 to the 1/3 power. So that makes no difference whether you want to write it as a radical or whether you want to write it as a rational exponent. I like to keep things a little bit in radical form and try to get the number to the power or the root. So this would be the cube root of -2 to the 3rd power. Notice that I changed the -2, or excuse me, I changed the -8 into -2 to the 3rd power, and then the root and the power cancel, leaving you just -2. So the next one, the negative is outside the radical. So if I was going to rewrite this, this would be 8 to the 1/3 power, and notice that I kept the negative outside that parenthesis. Now, putting it back into radical form, this is 2 cubed, and so the answer to this question, again, is -2. When dealing with negatives, it's okay to take an odd root of a negative. We're going to get to down the road here. This is the 4th root of 16, or the 4th root of 2 to the 4th power, which is just 2. And now this one gets a big star. If you type this into your calculator, or if you tried to do this, there is no way to get -16, because -2 times -2 times -2 times -2, if you did it 4 times, is a +16. So there is no way to do this question, okay? This is impossible. What I will tell you is you cannot take an even root of a negative. When you're in Algebra 2, you'll actually get into taking an even root of a negative. It's an entirely different mathematical system known as imaginary. But again, we're not necessarily talking about that right now. So you cannot take an even root of a negative. Next one. So I want the 4th root of 16 to the 3rd power. Now, let's just talk about the 4th root of 16. So the 4th root of 16 is the 4th root of 2 to the 4th, which is just 2. And then that to the 3rd power is 8. So 2 times 2 times 2. So again, I'm doing the root first and then doing the exponent. So this is the cube root, 27 to the 4th. Well, let's do the cube root of 3 to the 3rd to the 4th. And so that's just 3 to the 4th, which is 81. So again, I'm doing the root first and then raising it to the power. Now, you guys are going to be able to do this on a calculator. But for our purposes today, try not to use a calculator in all of them. Try to show your work, see if you can actually do this without the assistance of a calculator. So here we go. Cube root of -64. Well, that's -4 cubed. Now, some of you are going to say, what about the negative? Odd roots of a negative is okay. Even root of a negative is bad. So the cube root of -4 to the 3rd power is just -4. And then when I square it, I get +16. Next one, I want the 4th root of 256, and then I'm going to cube it. 256 is 4 to the 4th power. So now I'm just down to 4 cubed, because remember, the root and the power, or the root and the power cancel each other out, and then leaving you 4 to the 3rd power, which is 64. Hit pause for a second. See if you can get the next one by yourself. All right, welcome back. So this would be the square root of 9 to the 5th. Well, the square root of 3 squared, so that would be 3. And then 3 to the 5th power is actually 243. A real world situation now. The radius of a sphere is given by the equation. So I have an equation to deal with where V is the volume of the sphere. Find the radius of the beach ball to the nearest foot. Now, 3.14 for pi, and they're giving you the volume. So radius is equal to 3 times 113, 4 times 3.14, raised to the 1/3 power. So I'm going to pull out a calculator here, and I'm going to go 3 times 113 and I'm going to get 339. 4 times 3.14, 12.56. And so 339 divided by 12.56, 26.99. And then I want that to the 1/3 power. So 26.99 raised to the 1/3 power. And I get basically 3. It's 2.999, and this is cubic feet. Now, I do want to pull up a graphing calculator and talk about this just a little bit. So if you have a graphing calculator, make sure you're paying attention. How do I do some of these questions on a graphing calculator? So let's do the 4th root of 16. So that would be, now here's where it's located on a graphing calculator. You go to Math. Notice the number 5 option. And so depending on how old or new your calculator is, the 4th root, and then you have to arrow to the right, 16. So that's how you would type it in a graphing calculator. Now, some of you, it might be easier to do this as 16 raised to the, notice the up caret right above the divided by sign. And then if it just has an up caret, you might have to put parentheses. Otherwise, with this graphing calculator, I don't. So 16 raised to the 1/4 power, that's also 2. So notice these are 2 different ways to write. The 4th root of 16 is in radical form, and 16 to the 1/4 power is in exponent form. So hopefully that helped. Please talk to your teacher if you need anything on how to use a calculator. Your homework assignment is on page 303. Notice it says show your work. You can use your calculator. You can check your answers with the calculator. We are not going to take the calculator away from you, but try to do some of these without a calculator to get to learn how to do radicals without a calculator. So your homework assignment is on page 303. If you have any questions, make sure you talk to your teacher, and good luck.